Hello and welcome to our very first episode. We are so excited to be here with you. And what we're going to do is we every 2 weeks will put out an episode that's either true crime, paranormal, or horror. So this week we will be starting with true crime. Then in 2 weeks, you'll get paranormal. 2 weeks following that, you'll get horror. And in between, we'll put out, as Amy calls it, a mini-sode that will be basically anything. So for now, we're going to start out with true crime.
This week's documentary, we watched The Devil on Trial, and let me tell you, it was actually a fantastic flick. It really was surprising. It was actually very informative. They had actual relatives, family members, and I thought that it was actually a really good one to give you an inside look of what went on in the house. And also, I enjoyed the recordings and pictures that were added in as well. Only thing I wish they didn't zoom them the way they did at times. I wish they'd have just kept them still.
Right. So
Did you notice that?
yes.
Yeah.
Also, the part that I forgot to add was what we do is every time you'll get one of these three true crime, paranormal, or horror, we're going to watch either a documentary, a movie, or an episode, and then we're going to discuss it. So,
Absolutely. Yes.
forgot that part. So now you all know what we're doing. And Devil on Trial was on Netflix. And I mean, they do really good content. So I pretty much almost always enjoy what I view on Netflix. I don't know. One thing, and we should probably say this before every episode, it's so hard to know the content that's true. I
Yes.
seriously read probably 10 articles, and some of them were off by years.
Hmm.
So we do our best, obviously. We do a lot of research, but we will do our best to repeat what we think is accurate. But sometimes that's going to be kind of hard based on what we're finding. And maybe because this story involved the Warrens, maybe that's why there were so many articles or different shows, and then
Right.
every time something gets lost in translation, or I don't know. There was just
That
a
makes
lot out
sense.
there. Yeah.
And
So we
also,
did our best.
sorry. Also, if you are listening to this and something that we say is wrong and reach out, let us know because we would be glad to come back and correct that.
Oh my gosh, yes, good
Yes,
call. Absolutely. We want to give accurate information. It's just sometimes hard based on the internet.
absolutely.
So I don't know. A lot of people may not even know the story, even though it seems like a bigger story. And not all of the stories that we do are going to be big, like, oh, the Warrens covered it. We're going to do ones that are small that we want to bring to light, and ones that maybe don't have but one article online, or we want to do small ones too.
Sometimes I think that those are the most interesting
Hmm.
just simply because a lot of people have not heard of those.
Right.
I really feel that way, and then also a lot of people I don't think realize that when you're watching the Conjuring movies, they think they're just made up movies and don't realize that there is stories behind those.
Yep.
So, I kinda like the idea of us watching those and giving them the backstories and then maybe the opportunity to go watch them in the spots that we give them, like we did, like Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we're what we want to do is make sure that we're obviously putting out correct information, but also get followers involved and get you watching these as well, especially those smaller stories.
Absolutely, and I feel like we're from the most part, we're using sites and stuff that most people do have access to.
Right. Yeah.
So if
We're
you
yeah,
wanna get the full story, you can go watch that or listen to it from where we did.
right. Just remember this particular story, there's a lot out there. So,
There is a
like,
lot.
it'll be easy to research, but maybe hard to pinpoint what's accurate.
Absolutely.
So, the premise of what happened. there was a boy. His name was David Glatzel. And again, I saw some reports that say he was 11 and some that said he was 12. So
Same.
I am not exactly sure which is accurate. But during 1980, he went to a house that his sister was going to rent, and they were there to clean out the house. And he had an experience. And he described it in The Devil on Trial,
Hmm.
and it basically was something knocked him over and sort of took over his body, basically. And it wasn't something immediate where he went home and was like, bah, it took some time, but then it just shit started going downhill from there. I
Well,
don't
he
know.
seen the apparition up there in that master bedroom, and then he had went home and seen the apparition for the second time, and it had kind of progressed, I would say, or that's maybe what I would call it. It progressed to have hoofs and hair or such to, kind of, I guess, maybe make one think that it was resembling the devil.
Right.
That's what I would get if I was a little 11, 12-year-old, like we said, that age is to be debated, sitting there in my bed and looking at this little crazy dude with hoofs and then I've got beware messages coming. I can't imagine.
And black eyes. He said it had black eyes
Yes,
like coal.
yes, 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 I can't. Yeah,
And the good thing about The Devil on Trial, like Amy said, these are accurate. Like the family members are on there. Not the sister, because unfortunately she passed away, but two of
rest in
his
peace.
brothers. So that show is going to be the most accurate place where you can get the information.
Right.
So definitely
And then you
watch that
also
if you
have the
haven't.
skeptical side too.
Hmm.
Which is appreciated, because we both, we do like to debunk, and we are up for skeptical sides. I mean, you've got to be.
Absolutely. And I will also say we came out strong with some devil stuff for our first few episodes, because I feel like every time, and listen, paranormal investigating became really popular with Ghost Adventures and some of the Ghost Hunters, some of those
Mhm.
shows. But with that comes sort of like the scare factor. And so all you ever hear, if even if you're alive at a cemetery, oh, you're going to get possessed. There's going to be demons. There's going to be a
Mhm.
devil. Like,
Right.
and Amy and I both believe that those are rare. So
Right.
we're just going to put that out there right now. Like, we're not here to like gas anyone up, or we don't, we're not like, oh, there's a demon. But because other people are, we wanted to come out strong our first couple episodes here and
And
just
this
nip
one,
that.
this case does have enough to make you take a second look.
Right. Agree.
So I don't. I just really this when you said this one, I was like, okay, yeah, I can get down with that. I'll watch it a second time. I'm ready to go. Let's go.
Same. I had
Right. Yeah.
watched it before as well,
Right.
but you know, it's not a terrible story. And listen, I'm, what I call myself an open skeptic. And I know, like with your investigations, you've gotten way more. So I've had a couple of things on mine, but I still haven't had that like major thing. So I'm always on this podcast more than Amy. I'm always going to be kind of like I don't know. I'm not
Right.
so sure.
Right.
But with this story, I Chris Holt, who is the director, he said he interviewed, David. He interviewed his brother Alan, and their stories never wavered. He said
Right.
he believes them. They never changed their stories. So, there's
Right.
got to be some validity to that. I can't deny that. I don't know. I
I
mean,
mean, you want to know the one, like some of the stuff I was kind of like,
yeah.
but when you have the sheriff on the show, The Devil on Trial, sit there and say that Lorraine Warren come to him before she left town and said, "This is going on. You know it's already happened, and I see someone losing their life by a knife."
Yep.
That right there, you're just like, okay. Because even though he said that he did not really, I guess, fall into that kind of stuff, I really do believe after he heard that and then what happened, he was a 100% believer right then.
Right.
So I don't know. That was the one thing that I was like, man,
I agree. Again, I can't, there's validity to that.
yeah, yeah,
I can't debate that. How do I,
right. It's
how do
just
you
like,
debate that?
man, right.
Yeah. So back to the story. So David, he's 11 or 12. He has these apparitions, and then he starts having possession like symptoms where,
Mhm.
and the cool thing about the Devil on Trial, they have photos and audio,
Absolutely, yes.
which I love. Like, oh man, I'm such a fan of real audio, video, stills, whatever I can get in my viewing. Like, I'm all about that. And there's a lot of
Eventually, I want to
audio.
work our way to doing that.
Ooh, yeah. I'm
That,
in.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
We're all in. All the
Stay
viewers,
tuned.
me. Yes.
And then the little elevator music. Dun, dun, dun,
Amy's
dun, dun,
dancing.
dun, da, 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 dun, da, 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 dun, dun, da, da. Stay tuned. All right,
Yep.
I'm done.
So he starts, and you can hear this audio. He's using a lot of profanity, calling his mom lots of names, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
So after that, there was his sister, Debbie. She's the one who was renting that house where he went and he initially had that first experience. And from what I read, again, this is, I saw a couple of different ages, but the one I saw the most said she was 26 at the time. Her fiance, who was named Arne Cheyenne Johnson, was 19 at the time. She's kind of a cougar.
And the cute thing, I was kind of like trying to pull back even further into their story. They were kind of friends before, and then after he was older, he kind of was like, "Hey, Debbie, I'm kind of seeing you over there." And he asked her out, and she said yes, and then it was just over from there. Isn't that
Cute.
the cutest story?
I didn't see that article. That's
Yes, I
cute.
love that one. Yeah, I just
Yeah.
love that. I was like that. And then what you see on the documentary, I'm just like, oh, they like her love was so real for that man.
Oh,
And
yes.
her belief and her trust in him was,
Absolutely.
yes, you
Yes.
can't like, you want Debbie Gletzel on your side
Hmm.
when it comes to that kind of love. Like everybody needs
For
a
sure.
Debbie Gletzel.
Yeah, she's ride or die
Yes,
for sure.
absolutely. God rest her soul.
Right.
Yes.
So Arnie, she's dating Arnie. So we have Debbie and Arnie, and they're there during all of these episodes with David. And I think, was it Debbie? One of them saw the Warrens on a TV show, and then they
It
decided
was
to call
Judy, the
them.
mother.
Oh, Judy. Okay.
And she had actually attended a conference where they were speaking live at before that, and she decided to reach out to them afterwards because I'm
Okay.
assuming that she had just seen them and had that much belief in them.
Right.
And I mean,
And
who else are you going to reach out to when all that's going on, you
right
know?
in 1980, this
Yeah.
they were pretty much it back then.
Yeah, and a lot of people looked at you like you were absolutely nuts
Right.
when you started talking about that stuff. So, I mean, yeah, let's call the Warrens. And
Right?
another
Even
thing that really struck me is like back then, think of this, she could actually just go to her kitchen and grab the phone with the cord and look in the phone book. And she was like, ring, ring, ring. And
right.
Lorraine was like, well, hello. Is this Lorraine? Well, yes, dear. Yeah,
That's
I
so
mean that
funny.
like it was so
Yeah.
easy just to reach out then.
Yeah. And I don't know if their first move had been going to a priest. Again, in 1980, I don't know, maybe they would
They
have been
did have
like,
the home blessed.
you're nuts. But not so specific as to what was going on with David to
Right.
say what he was saying and what he was doing. Uh,
Hmm.
and I don't know in the 80s, like, I mean, we had The Exorcist already, but
Right.
like, I don't know
And
how
poltergeist.
accepting. Yeah.
Right.
Like, maybe the Catholic Church would have been like, sure, we bless your house, but this is ridiculous. Like, I don't know. So, who do you go to in 1980? The Warrens.
I
That's
mean,
pretty much it.
especially I don't think you would want to go to the Catholic Church without definite proof and something to back you,
Oh,
or
for sure.
someone like the Warrens.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's serious talk and,
Yeah. Yeah.
allegations. So I
And
totally
you,
see how having somebody like the Warrens would be a lot easier to get through to the Catholics, the
right.
Catholic priest.
Because you don't want the Catholic priest calling the mental health facility. Like, uh,
Yeah,
it's the 80s. These people might just like have some mental issues. I don't know. It's just become more accepted, or I might even use the word popular. I don't know. It's just become
I agree.
more
It's
recognized.
absolutely. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I do agree.
So then the Warrens came in, and that's where a lot of this footage comes from. It's from the Warrens recording what was going on in the house. And so, and I don't want to give away too much. I mean, obviously there are going to be spoilers if you've never seen the show. So, if you want to watch the show and then come back and listen, that might be a good idea if you're worried about that. Uh so like I don't know how much we want to say about
I mean, I'm ready to spoil it all. Maybe they'll definitely want to watch it.
go go
I'm
for it.
ready to spoil it, baby.
Do it. Oh, tell them everything of what happened with
I'm here to
David.
spill the tea. Because honestly, like, you know how we have our interest in true crime. I can listen to a 2020 episode at
Mhm.
work and then watch it on TV and it's totally different. I
Right,
don't
that is
mind it
true.
whatsoever. So, I say
That
let's
is
spill the
true.
tea. Let's let y'all I want to know. I want to know, you want to know, and let's give everybody what we know.
Sweet.
Let's go.
So there were points where he was getting physically violent as well while
Hmm.
screaming. I don't know how, like, I mean, what we saw on Netflix was, he was calling her, his mom mostly, a bitch.
Hmm.
He was using different things like calling people pig or a dickhead, or some of it
Right.
I was like, I didn't even know they really talked like that in the 80s, in 1980. Like, I don't know, I thought profanity evolved since then, but I guess not.
Maybe not.
I guess they have recordings of this 11, 12-year-old boy saying this stuff in 1980.
Right. So, I mean, maybe,
Who knew?
we're still speaking the same language.
I guess.
Still the same foul mouth talk that they was speaking in the 80s.
If you have children, don't let them listen to what I'm going to say. I feel like the one word that he said that I was like, oh, okay, 1980 cocksucker. I was like, huh, okay. That one surprised me. I don't know why. I don't know what I'm thinking. Like, I was just surprised that an 11
Yeah.
or 12-year-old boy is using that word in 1980.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely okay. And in the recordings, could he have really made his voice sound like that? Do you think? What's your opinion? I want to know what you think. Let's pick your mind.
I don't know. Did I do it? I don't know.
No,
Cocksucker.
because I no, because I can still hear your tone in there.
Oh.
I
He
really
definitely
can.
sounded different. He didn't sound like a
Yeah,
12,
like
11-year-old.
no. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Amy.
I still hear you. I
No, I'm
still
going to
hear
be
you.
doing that for like
Now,
a
if you'd
week.
have come talk to me back in the 80s, man, I thought I had the best prank call voice.
Amy. Okay,
Yeah.
well, so I mean, I was thinking that when I was watching the show, because I rewatched it last night,
Hmm.
I was thinking that, like, how it sounds so drastically different than his voice, I'm sure,
Right.
as an 11 or 12-year-old. So, how do you fake that? I don't know.
Yeah. And the contorting,
Right.
which we didn't get to see the actual videos of that, which I'm sure
Mm.
that if what they did have on those videos, that they say if that's on there, that's probably not something that you would want to show the general public.
Amy,
So
unless you're me and you have Ehlers-Danlos and you can turn your body inside out like this, you can't
but did
see.
he really look like he did? Fair question.
No.
Like,
I
I
mean,
mean,
I
can
don't
you
know.
tell maybe?
No.
Like when you know, like when somebody
No.
like moves. Okay, okay, got you.
Well, maybe. I mean, a little. It just depends. Like, I can bend my fingers back. Like,
And of course, I didn't
it's,
watch his hands
I didn't
that
either.
close. Gotcha. So okay, okay, fair enough. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. So,
I'm just a debunker always.
and I mean, could he have more strength than an average 11 to 12-year-old? Sure, he wasn't a small child.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, you could go in it and you could look at it and you could debunk it, in
Yeah,
those terms if you wanted to. Absolutely, yes.
definitely.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I could sit down and I could talk with somebody on those points. I could. And
Right.
that also ties into something that we will, I'm sure, touch on later, and that is some of Carl's skepticism.
Right.
So,
Definitely.
we'll touch on that a little bit later to the podcast, but that does, like, what we were speaking about, the assumption of, um, he wasn't a small child. You'll see.
Right.
Just don't
Right.
don't leave us. We'll get there.
Well, and his brother Alan was present during a lot of this when it
Yes.
was, all the Warrens would come and
Yes.
they were doing these recordings. And his brother Alan is on the show and supports everything David says. And he
Absolutely.
believes what happened was he was possessed. And we'll talk about in a few minutes what happened in the end. But
Hmm.
his brother Alan, excuse me, is supportive and believes him. And so, again, he was there. Hard to debate someone that was there. I don't know.
And when he spoke about certain instances, like the little bit of fear that he let off, you could tell that was genuine, I think.
Mm, yeah,
Him and David both, I think, looked like they were genuinely still affected by this.
yeah, yeah. And I also like that, I think it was David, he said, I've never talked about this before. I feel skeptical when someone goes on 15 shows.
Right. Mate, yeah.
Then I feel like maybe it's about the money. I don't know. But this is the only show that they said that they've really participated in. And in fact, he said he doesn't even publicly discuss this at all.
Right.
So I
And the
feel like
saddest
that's
part was where it's torn them all apart.
right.
Like something happened.
Hmm.
You've seen all, like at least two of them upset and nearly in tears because the family's torn apart now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
regardless of what if you want to believe the story or you don't, something happened in that home to tear a family apart.
Right.
And I don't think it was just the Warrens come to give them a visit.
Right. Yeah. Something, I mean, regardless of whether it was true or I don't know. I mean, it was still, let's go, if it was true, it was probably incredibly traumatic for every single one of them.
Absolutely.
So that would make sense.
Absolutely.
Like I could totally see that tearing a family apart just because of the trauma. People deal with trauma differently. Some people want to talk about it, some people don't. Like it's just if it happened and it's real, I totally can see how that would destroy a family.
Absolutely. And like when you hear the parts talking about the dad this, the dad that, dad didn't believe, dad,
Hmm.
dad, dad. Um, Dad didn't stay around for much of this. He would stay at work. He would be in the other room. He would be outside tinkering around with his truck, working on it. And back in the 80s, a man was raised, a man is a man.
Hmm.
If you're upset, if you're scared, what you don't sit down and cry or you don't run, you're going to lash out at those around you. So I can't speak on his actions either because
Right.
I understand, the difference. I just do. So I can't speak on how he acted as well. So I don't know what was going through his head.
Right. And on the flip side of that, if it was faked, I mean, maybe some of them were supportive and some of them weren't, and that's what tore them apart. You know what I mean? So either
Yeah,
way,
absolutely.
I could see either scenario and why it affected the family and the way that it did, which is unfortunate,
Absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely.
Uh, I don't know. Is there really anything else to go into about the actual possession and, what happened outside of him? Like the contorting, the changing the voice, the yelling profanities, getting physical.
I really do think bringing up the fact that he felt watched all the time and knew
Mhm.
that something was coming. And
Yes.
it seemed like after the moments that or the happening, the experience, whatever you want to call it, that he had upstairs in that master bedroom with the waterbed, whatever happened in there opened up something within him and he was able to sense things. And then you hear at the end, even from his own mouth, that he had somewhat of possibly a psychic or premonition of some sort. Psychic event or premonition, I should say. He had something happen. So something, it seems, did happen up there and opened him up, it feels like to me.
Right. Because, like Amy said, one of the things that he talked about in the documentary was that he could see this figure looking inside sometimes. So,
Hmm. And he
like,
just knew, like, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And I
right.
mean, imagine Judy. I don't know how I feel about Judy.
Yeah.
Bless her. Bless her. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm not hating on her whatsoever. But imagine you are asleep in the middle of the night and your 11, 12-year old, remember that's still up for debate what age he was, is in his bedroom screaming at the top of his lungs that a demon's coming after him.
Right.
My goodness.
No big deal. No
You've
problem.
had a long day. Just go lay down and rest, David.
Right.
See you in the morning.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that would be pretty freaky. And it wasn't
It's
just a one-time thing.
Yeah. Like this was nightly, what, maybe 2 to 3 days after he had come home, for 2 or 3
Mhm.
nights after he'd come home from that house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I don't know. I feel like it's just wild.
Yeah. I almost did that last night because I never remember my dreams ever. But last night was one of like once a year I remember. And I was on vacation with my whole family, including my dad, who's no longer here. But all we were
Oh.
on vacation and all these spiders kept coming down from the ceiling and I was screaming like that. Great dream.
Yay. Yeah. I spend a lot of nights with my mama, and sometimes my dad's there,
Yeah.
and I think that's really weird. That's so weird to me.
I don't think it's weird.
It's
I'm
like
sure I
almost every
dream.
night, though.
Yeah. I mean, mine probably is too. I just don't remember. But
I just remember mine. Yeah, I guess so.
yeah, screaming in
It's
the
weird.
middle of the night is probably really unpleasant by your child, I would imagine. I mean, I don't
Absolutely.
know, but
Absolutely. I agree.
yeah. So,
And with all of this emotion that's being stirred up by these events, the crying, the screaming, and you have a father that you don't show that kind of stuff. And we all know that you had the brothers, Carl and what was the other brother's name?
Ellen,
Alan. Yes, you had Carl and Alan who like to go outside. They learned from their father how to work on vehicles, how to do this, do that. We all know that David, he kind of stayed inside and didn't like to really get dirty and would rather bake and cook with his mother.
right?
So he's probably a little more emotional because the other two are spending a lot of time with their father. Now you have him crying, screaming, having mother upset. He's, fretting, but you can just see the whole picture. And what he's going to
Mhm.
totally shut down, and he's going to become hateful because I've seen it happen with a lot of the older generation of men that do not like emotion.
Right.
So to me, that kind of, I'm not going to judge him because that could be what maybe happened. I don't know. It just makes sense to me.
Yeah. And also, as you're saying that, it made me think that what we hear a lot is if, and this is from mediums mostly, but and I guess like psychics too, but if there is negativity swirling around, so like the dad is mad at the situation and doesn't believe it, and there's fighting within the home and all that, it
Hmm.
amps up whatever's going on.
It feeds it.
Yes. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, if we're going with that theory of this was real and this was a possession, I am sure the internal fighting just was like candy to whatever that was, you know?
Oh, yeah. It was a 7-course meal. What are you
Yep.
talking about?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, it had all the fixins.
Mhm.
Drag the burger through the garden, whatever you need to do, make some dessert, we're going. It's ready.
Yep.
Like it everything, the whole. And another thing I would love to know, I was just sitting here thinking about it, what happened in that house
I don't know.
that Debbie and Arnie, you know what I'm saying, we're getting
Yeah.
ready to move into?
Yeah.
What happened there? What caused it's just wild.
Yeah.
This
Why?
story makes your mind go in so many different places.
Right. Like, why was that even there in the first place if it was there?
And why
Something
David?
happened. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Did
I
David
mean,
possibly have some abilities to begin with?
maybe, but also obviously, if you talk to anyone who is into this kind of thing, they'll say that kids are more susceptible or open. So maybe it's
Absolutely.
just his age. I don't know.
Absolutely. He was the youngest. He was a little baby.
Yeah.
So,
But
yeah,
it would be interesting to try to get the address and try to do some research. Was there a
agree.
murder there? Was there like who a lot of these places they're on like battlegrounds from civil wars or
Yeah.
whatever and all that. So it would be interesting to research the location and see. Maybe we could do
Absolutely.
a mini-sode on that.
Oh, mini-sode, mini-sode,
Yes,
mini-sode.
let's
Yes,
go.
that's a good idea. Like,
Yeah,
everything paranormal or whatever starts with history. So
yeah.
I am here for a mini-sode of the history of that house.
Amy,
Yes,
I failed American history.
it's okay.
It's not
This
my
is
strong
the
suit.
You're not going to be looking at stuff you're not interested in. So you're
Right.
good.
Yeah. It has a whole new purpose for me, history.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The research aspect of it. So,
Yes.
it's okay. It's okay that I failed history. It's fine.
We're not going to hold it against you.
Yes, thank you. So, then all okay, he's they're having all these issues. He's under whatever, and they're recording all this, and it's volatile, and they're fighting within the house. As Amy mentioned, the dad did not believe,
Mm-mm.
and neither did the oldest brother Carl.
Right.
So, and we can talk more about Carl, but they didn't go a ton into the dad outside of saying he didn't believe it. He thought the Warrens were absurd.
Right.
And he, at one point, came in, and I don't remember, did he say he hit him or he just yelled at him?
Yes, he was down on the floor doing his little kicking and screaming, and his mom was holding him, trying to hold him down and calm him down. And he started screaming at her. I can't remember what he said, but it was very, very vulgar. I guess his dad was in the other room and was like, what did he just say? He had heard enough. He was done. He takes off in there. He grabs him up and he smacks him across the face.
Yes.
And Carl said, and then the devil sat down and shut up.
Right.
And I was like,
And again, coming from the view of being a skeptic, why then, if it were a
did he shut
possession,
up?
why
Yeah.
didn't that, like, make it even, like, why didn't he throw his dad across the room? Or I don't know, I wasn't there, I don't know. These
Yeah.
are questions that probably everyone has when they
That
watch.
stuck with me though.
Right. Yeah.
It just kind of seems like if I don't remember the father's name, do you?
Actually, I don't. It was one of the
I don't
names that I
remember him.
didn't write down.
He I know because he didn't spend a whole lot of time,
Right.
in the story because he distanced himself so much as far as having two jobs while all this
Yeah.
was going on just to stay away. But I kind of feel like Carl was dad's boy, like
Probably.
kind of ripped from
Yeah.
the same cloth, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And maybe Alan and David were more like the mother, even though Alan did prefer to stay outside with his dad more. Maybe they kind
Yeah.
of got, you know, maybe split up in personalities. That kind of struck me as well too.
Well, and it could have been just a simple fact of Carl's the oldest, and so has more in common with his dad at that age. You know what
Right.
I mean? Who knows?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like he
but
was more exposed to his dad and more like his
right.
dad.
Exactly.
I
So
agree.
who knows? Maybe Carl and his dad would sit and talk about how ridiculous this is. Like, we don't know. That
Yeah.
they didn't talk about that in the show. So, it is interesting that those are the two that were the closest, but also were debating that this was real or not real.
Right.
So, I don't know. Uh and so Carl, I guess we can go into that too. So we talked about the dad, and he didn't believe he this happened, where the dad yelled and got physical and, was like, no more. And then
Right.
it stopped in the moment. And Carl was on the show. They interviewed him. And I don't know that there's a lot to say other than he didn't believe it. He thought that the only reason that this was going on was for the money. And he also believed that the Warrens screwed over the parents, and didn't
Hmm.
pay them, I guess, out of book money. They wrote a book about this case.
Right.
And so he thought it was all about the money. And then the Warrens screwed over the family in the
What
end.
did he say the family ended up getting? 4,000
I
and
think, yeah.
something dollars, and the Warrens got like 80,000. And then
Yeah.
they had told David before that that he was going to be a very rich little boy. I
Right.
believe that was that. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, well, that's, I think, from the show. Again, in online research, it was all over the place. So it's
Right.
one of those
I'm
debatable.
gonna. I think I'm probably gonna go ahead and stick with Netflix because you
Yeah,
actually had the real family members on there.
agree. To
So
fully on board with that.
right,
So, you know, Carl and Dad didn't believe it, and Carl specifically thought that the Warrens just did it for the money.
right.
So, you know,
Yeah,
I
because he said that the Warrens would come over after dark. They grab their cameras. David would start wailing and flashing or flapping around and yelling cuss words, and the show would begin. So you
yeah,
have like we said, the skeptical look, and then you've got the ones who say they experienced it and it was real.
right. And I do like that you brought up in the beginning the sheriff or the police officer,
Hmm.
or whoever it was, because those police officers, sheriffs, whoever, they aren't typically too into the paranormal and possessions or whatever you want to
Right.
call it. So I do tend to lean into listening more to, like, if one of those people, like a cop or someone,
Absolutely.
says this happened, only because
Right.
of that fact. Like, that's not
Right.
typical cop thinking, really.
Right. And the fact that the priests never mentioned it again
Yeah,
after they weren't needed for their service to testify, and so they just
yeah.
never spoke about it again. I mean, to me, it feels like if their name was being drugged through the mud by all this false story, would they speak up? I would think so.
Right, you would think. Yeah,
So that why would they want to be associated with something that wasn't real?
right. I don't know.
That was another one of my thinkings
Correct.
too.
Yep,
Or
yep.
thinkings.
The
Thinkings.
thinkins.
Thinkings.
I love it. So moving into then the incident. So on, I wrote this date down. It's here somewhere. It was in, let me find the date. I can't find it now, but it was in 1981. So this had gone on
February
for
16th,
months.
1981.
Yes,
Is
I
that
wrote
what you're
it
talking
down.
about?
Correct. That was the incident. So that day, and again, I don't know how many times we're going to say this. There's debate on the internet about what happened this day. So we're just going to do our best here.
We just totally skipped over the exorcism.
Oh, yeah,
That's important.
that is
Very
important.
important. Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay. Sorry. Like I said, we both have ADHD, so sometimes you might have to bear with us. But back on track. I was like, wait.
Yeah, very important part.
The Warrens come in, they did their recording, they did all of their, I guess, research, whatever they needed to do. They took their pictures, they had all their proof that they needed to present to the Catholic priest. They did get them on board with doing an exorcism, and they set that up in the church. I do believe it was Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, Debbie Gletso, Judy Gletso, and Alan Gletso that attended the exorcism along with the priest, and that was it, wasn't it?
I think so.
And the Warrens, yeah. And so they went through their whole little ordeal. They said that David was yelling out obscenities. His body was twisting and turning and contorting in ways that they did not think that it was possible for him to actually bend in. He at one point was being choked, trying to pull away from his throat. His lips had turned blue. The boy could not breathe. They were scared to death. His mother, I'm sure, was in complete panic. Eventually, they were just scared that he was going to pass away, lose his life from this, which they had been warned when they walked in that was a possibility. This could get very, very, very violent, and ultimately, he could lose his life. Well, Arnie had been there through his side the whole time, had been helping hold him down, and he had had enough. He grabbed up David and he said, he just completely challenged the demons. He said, "Mess with me, leave this boy alone." I'm not quoting his exact words, but that was basically what he said. At that point, it is documented that David fell back, flew back, and he seemed to be exorcised. Arnie Cheyenne Johnson did the same, and all of a sudden, Lorraine Warren was like, negative, you do not challenge a demon. You do not. And I'm assuming between then and I'm going to guess the next day, because what did they scoot out? 2 to 3 days or a day after the exorcism? They went back to their home in Connecticut?
Yeah, but he wasn't really having problems from what I remember
No,
for a few months.
no, he was completely fine. He thought, I'm
Yep.
sure, don't worry about this.
Right?
But in that time before they left to go back to Connecticut to their home, she had went to the sheriff's office like I mentioned in the beginning, and she was like, "You know what has just happened?" And that was also documented very, 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 very thoroughly and many times, that there was paranormal happenings going on at this house, this location. There had been a lot of stuff going on, a lot of calls, a lot of, I'm assuming that the police spoke with the Warrens, and also the priest on property. So they had that in documentation too. So they are knowing what's going on, and Lorraine cannot stand it. She cannot go home without letting the sheriff's office know what she is seeing. She walks in and she lets them know, "I see a knife and I see someone losing their life between the Johnson and the Gletzel family." The cop, I don't believe he took it with a grain of salt. I think he kind of held on to it in the back of his head. I think he was, kind of waiting and seeing. Hopefully that didn't happen, and they wanted them to be aware to keep an extra eye on it. And like you said, it was several months later.
Hmm.
Bam,
Yep.
tragedy. It
Yep.
changed their lives forever.
Yep. So that's where
Just
we
when they thought it was,
right?
yeah,
They
over.
probably right, exactly, thought, "Okay, we're in the clear." And then February 16th, 1981 happens, and
Yes.
this is what I'm going to go with because this is what I found the most online. So Arnie, who's 19, Debbie, his fiance, is 26. Debbie is David's sister. Debbie's cousin Mary, who is young, she was 9, and then a man named Alan Bono, who was Debbie's employer and her landlord.
Hmm.
She worked at a dog kennel. So
She was a groomer.
they all were out doing whatever, and Alan was drinking during the day and got overly intoxicated. Now, from what I read, he got a little aggressive with Mary, the 9-year-old, and grabbed her. And then that's when Arnie stepped in and stabbed Alan 4 times, and he unfortunately passed away. So then we fast forward to Arnie, and they catch him. There's a whole scene in there that's pretty cool that I don't want to spoil, but
I
they
thought we
do
were
end up
spoiling
catching
all the
Arnie.
tea.
I know, but we should
Okay,
leave
all right.
something because I
Okay.
thought that was a great scene. But
Oh yeah, it
so
was.
they catch Arnie, and he says he doesn't know what happened. He has zero
Mhm.
recall. I didn't kill him. That guy's my friend. Like, what are you talking about? That kind of
I
thing.
just left him, yeah.
Right? So then eventually he gets a lawyer, and his lawyer says that he was possessed. So the
Mhm.
thinking is when he yelled at the church during the exorcism and said, leave David alone, take me, the thinking is that whatever it was jumped uh into Arnie. And
Yes.
then that night, whatever that was, like ramped up and was responsible for the killing of Alan. I don't know if there's anything else about that night that we need to talk about outside of, like, the trial started in November. It was obviously in a lot of news publications because
Absolutely.
you're trying to claim you killed someone because you were possessed. So it
Right.
was a popular case at the time in
And I
1981.
like how the lawyer had actually researched
Hmm.
that as being a reason for the passing of someone because the individual was possessed by a devil. So they did know that it was capable of getting away, or I guess in the very least, lower sentence by using that plea.
Yeah.
So I did
Yep.
find that interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, because you can't argue that Arnie did it.
Right. No, there's
You
no,
can't because there's even
they
though
had
he doesn't
witnesses.
yes, and one of them is your love.
Right. Yep.
Because we've done talked about that love. Get you a
Yeah.
Debbie Gletzo.
Yeah. So there wasn't any question of did he do this? It
No,
was it him,
why?
or was it something inside of him? And so he went to trial in November, and he, instead of first degree murder, he was charged with first degree manslaughter, which was a 10 to 20-year sentence. So he went to prison, and after 4 years and 11 months, he was released based off of good behavior. And I will add, just as a side note, it's not important to the story, but the year prior, when he was in jail in 1985, Debbie and Arnie, they
That
were
is
married.
important.
Is it?
That is important. Yes,
Okay.
that's very important because we highlighted their love.
Well, okay.
I mean, that is so like she's stuck.
She
And
did.
that's
Yes,
it. That's
that is
another
true.
thing. Like she put her life on hold
Yeah,
because she believed in this man so much.
right.
Like, if all this was a lie and he really did kill this man, why? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then another point I did want to bring up is they did question whether possibly Debbie and Alan were having an affair. That was brought up into speculation. And Debbie did admit that they did date in the past, but all that was water under the bridge. Now they were just friends, and he was her employer. And the apartment did come with the position of in the job that she did have, because I'm assuming since it was a kennel, she was a groomer. She probably did go down, take the animals out that were in the kennel and care for them, give them food, water. So that is probably why they did need a live-in. So that did make perfect sense for the apartment to come with the position. And it's just, you got alcohol, you have the demonic possession that we have discussed, and it's no brainer. It's not going to end good. It's going to change lives that night.
Yeah. And to your
But
point, the wedding was important because it proves how much she believed in this story.
yes,
You
yeah,
know, I
because when
mean,
he told her, go ahead and go, she
right.
could have went ahead and just found somebody
Yeah.
else and moved on. Because I mean, no, 4 years isn't a lot of time, but it is.
Right.
It
Well,
is.
it's almost five.
Yeah,
It's
you're
a
right.
month shy of five. But
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of time.
yeah, it would have been easy when he went to jail just to be like, okay, uh, we're done. Like,
Yeah, he had full
yeah,
support of Judy.
yep,
He had full support of David.
yep,
I mean, they said Judy was completely devastated when the guilty plea came.
yeah, yeah,
So I mean, he just had so. I mean, let's not forget the fact that Alan Bono lost his life. Y-
correct,
It
for sure,
happened. It should not have happened. And yes, Arnie is responsible.
right,
Yeah, and may you rest in peace, Alan. I don't know what happened that night. You should it should have never happened.
right,
Wait, I don't want to go any further without saying that. This shouldn't have happened, whether I do believe that there was some sort of demonic possession or other world happenings, going in on it. It shouldn't have happened.
right.
And
Agree.
you can't forget that, you know. And I like the point that I don't believe Arnie ever did.
Yeah.
He never forgot that. I don't feel.
No, and I mean, he was on the show as well, and
Hmm.
you can tell he definitely feels bad.
Absolutely.
He's not casual about it by any means.
No,
No.
no, no. And I know that this does not don't okay, we're gonna do true crime. This does not mean anything at all, but he didn't look like somebody just go, just because I'm a bad
Yeah.
person. You know what I'm saying? And I mean,
Yeah.
I know you can't judge a book by its cover. I know that, whether it's good or bad, but I don't know. He just didn't strike me as that
Well, and
energy.
yeah, I agree. They also, just to add to them getting married in 1985, they stayed married until 2021 when
Right,
Debbie passed away. So,
right.
you know, again, just
And
to
I don't
add
think
that,
he's remarried, has he?
I mean, he didn't say, and I didn't find that online.
I didn't notice. I did look for a ring and I did not see a ring. That does not mean anything. Some people don't wear a ring, but I did
Right.
notice there's no ring. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And he's, I think, I estimated, I think he's around 58 now.
yeah, because they was not 100% sure. There was a saying they thought he was born was at 62.
Oh, I missed that part. I don't know.
Yeah, they was not sure of his birth date.
Oh, got it. Yeah. So, I mean, them being married all that time, I feel like really just shows how much she supported him and believed him and
Right.
believed David.
Right. And it's not like they just met and she just fell head over heels and they had this whirlwind love affair. They were friends before they started dating.
Right.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, they'd known each other for several years by this time.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
another thing that struck me.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm on the fence. I don't know. I don't know. Do we want to rate it?
A documentary?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What
Um,
do you think?
Out of a 10, we're going to start when we do our ratings. We're going to rate everything that we watch or discuss or, whatever case. I think we're going to go through what we decide 1 through 10, or do we want to go 0 through 10?
Yeah, 0 through 10.
Let's do 0 through 10. For this documentary, The Devil on Trial on Netflix, I'm going to give it a good solid 8.
That's what I was gonna say.
I wish they had not done all this stuff with the pictures. I didn't like all that. Like, I wanted
Mhm.
to see the pictures. And what else could I like to have seen? Maybe a little more footage, because I feel like they had the permission to get some of that more of that stuff maybe. So yeah, other than that, I loved it.
Right. And I
I
did
just want to see.
8.
You can't always want to see more though. You can't. Yeah, I
I
always
did
want to see
8, which I think is a good score because of the fact that they interviewed the real people that were
more.
involved.
Absolutely. That was my thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Which almost made me want to say 9, just because that's not disputable. So,
I mean, it
8.5?
probably does deserve a 9, but I just feel like there's a little bit more that I'd like to have known.
Yeah, 8.5. That's what I'm doing.
Okay.
Final answer.
8.7 maybe. Yeah. Final answer.
That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't know. I did enjoy it though. I
Yes.
enjoyed it a lot. When you
So,
said that, I was like, let's go.
yeah. So everyone watch The Devil on Trial on Netflix if you have it. And if
If
you
you do,
don't have it,
you better let us know what you
yes,
think,
please
because I want to
let us
know.
know.
Yes.
Yeah, we have all of our socials are Talk Gruesome to Me across the board. You can get a hold of us. If you have any stories, questions, anything to send in, you can use those
Concerns.
socials. Yep, concerns, anything.
Concerns, most definitely. Especially if you have anything that we have got wrong, because, like we said, there's
Please.
so much information out there. So,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yes, please correct us if
Absolutely.
we are wrong. We are not like that. We are just human, like we make mistakes. So please correct
I
us if we.
promise, if I ever lie to you, it's not because I meant to, it's because I didn't know no better.
Same. I'm not allowed to lie because I have trust, honesty, and FU on my stomach tattooed.
You really love
So
it.
if you're not being honest and trustworthy, FU. Only it says fuck. It doesn't say F. Shh.
Love it.
We said in our
Love it.
intro there's going to be bad words. I
Yeah,
I
you're good.
barely said any though, so I actually did really good not swearing.
And you know what? We did not fumble
No.
this whole thing.
I'm kind of disappointed I didn't burp. Maybe next time. And
Maybe.
next time in 2 weeks, we will be covering paranormal. And for this segment of all three, the true crime, paranormal, and horror, they kind of all tie in together. It's not always going to be like that, but this time it does. So the next one in 2 weeks will be paranormal. And then in between, in 1 week, mini-sode.
Yay. Dun, dun,
Yes.
dun, dun.
Thank you, everyone. And yeah, enjoy the documentary if you have Netflix. If not,
Go
check out
watch it.
online.
Yeah. I
There's a
mean, come
lot of
on.
info.
8.5 out of 10.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
for it.
And listen, not everyone has Netflix. There's plenty of articles out there that you can find. So hopefully our recap helped you if you don't have Netflix. But thank you,
Yeah.
and we'll see you in a week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.